is Joseph Woods. I am 42 years old and I live in Ocala, Florida. I've lived in a few different places over my life. I was born in San Jose, lived in Alabama for a while, lived in Georgia. Music's been a thing of mine for a pretty good while. I like playing guitar, I like playing ukulele. Singing has always come natural on my dad's side of the family. My biggest interest has always been artwork, like drawing, sketching. When I was growing up, I always wanted to be a cartoonist. I thought it would be the most awesome thing to have a comic strip, or even better, to go and work for a company like Disney. The summer of '93 was a big year for me. I was 16 years old that summer, and it was less expensive to get a driver's license in Georgia, so I decided I was getting my driver's license on my summer vacation while I was visiting my mom. So got to go and get road time for the entire summer, and then at the end of the summer went on a week-long camping trip. It was a camping/hiking trip up on the Appalachian Trail. And then after that I took my final road test and went back to California and started school the next day. Just after I started school, there was a day that I had a couple friends over. We were up in my room, and I don't remember personally exactly what happened, but I was told that one of my friends ran downstairs to get my dad, said that I had passed out and I wasn't waking up in my room. My dad ran up there and he found me laying on my back, just staring wide-eyed at the ceiling, unconscious. It was encephalitis. Encephalitis is a viral infection that goes to your brain and causes swelling.
It was a frightening time, I think, for everybody. We were all really concerned, not knowing what was going to happen with it, didn't know what the repercussions were. And I had no idea once you got out of the hospital, that given a little bit of time, the seizures would start with petit mal seizures and gradually get more and more and more severe until finally they were full-blown grand mal seizures. I had no idea that would be the outcome from you having encephalitis.
I missed about a week and a half of school, and then when I did go back, something just seemed different. My memory just wasn't as sharp as it was before.
Starting with your earliest seizures, they were just like blackouts, for lack of a better word.
When we would call you on the phone, and then there'd just be blanks, and we'd say, "Joe, are you still there?" And that was pretty common. And doing simple things like you were going to leave the house, and I'd say, "Joe, would you lock the door behind you when you go?" And you'd say, "Sure," and you'd walk 10 feet, and then you wouldn't lock the door.
There were different types of seizures. Some of the seizures were worse than others. It was often relevant to just the things that were going on around me. The petit mal seizures were not bad. I would just usually space out and do silly little things. There was one time that I walked off the top of a ladder. There was one time that I put my hand down on a grill, cooked my finger. The really bad ones were the grand mal seizures, though. For the grand mal seizures, I would fall on the floor and start shaking, usually chew up my tongue and the insides of my cheeks and start bleeding out of my mouth, and it freaked people out so badly. Especially my mom. My mom hated seeing me have grand mal seizures. She would just go into panic.
One of the therapists, one of the doctors said his short-term memory is bad and going to worse, and within a few years, if nothing is done, he'd probably have to go to an institution.
The medications got most of the grand mal seizures under control, so I was having petit mal seizures. After the grand mal seizures were kind of put in check, I decided to try my hand at school again. So I went to local community college. It was bad. I failed so many classes. I did horribly. I think I dropped out after just one semester, and I pretty much just gave up right then, thinking that I was ever going to be getting any kind of a college degree. Because I knew back then that I was never going to be able to go to art college, that I was not actually going to be able to pursue any type of design career, I pretty much just gave up on the entire concept of being an artist or cartoonist or whatever it was that I was hoping to end up being.
I was stopping by because me and you were going to go out back, and then we was going to do something. So I stopped by, and you ran upstairs. You was like, you have to go upstairs and get something. And when you ran upstairs, all I heard was boom, and I ran up quick, and I saw you, and I was like, I remember talking to Bill and Henry, more specifically Bill. It's like, if that ever happens, come get me. And for the love of God, don't tell your mother. So I went to the door and I rang the bell, and I was like, hey, Kyle, come in. I was like, real quick, I need to talk to Bill. She's like, really? And I was like, yeah, I just need to talk to Bill. So I ran. I was like, Joe's having one. I was like, all right, I'm going to sneak out, and you just talk to him.
Just keep it on the down.
Yeah. So he snuck out. He came up there, and we helped put you in bed. And came back, and your mother was coming over. It's like, what's up? And Bill was like, oh, Joe just had a seizure. She's like, what? He's already in bed. He kept walking.
There was one day that we went in for a checkup to get my meds worked on, see if there was any adjustments that needed to be made. There was a person that my parents were talking to in the office that said something about just, why don't you just get the thing worked on and get rid of the seizures?
An orderly was moving you from one room to the other, and your mother was walking with her. And the orderly said, why don't you get him fixed? Why don't you get this taken care of? And your mom said, what do you mean, get it fixed? And the orderly was the one that told her that there's an operation that could fix this.
And the doctor says, well, yeah, he'd be actually a very good candidate, but we haven't mentioned it before because it is a very, very, very expensive procedure.
She came over and she's like, oh, we're trying to get all this money together because Joe can have a surgery that can possibly end his seizures. They'll locate the source and they'll pick out what it is, and if they can remove it, they'll remove it, and it should be able to stop his seizures. And I remember we're kind of asking questions like, was it safe? I mean, she's like, it's a trauma procedure, which makes anybody nervous because anything can go wrong. They don't fully know.
There were so many tests that I had to go through. There were EEGs and EKGs and neuropsych evaluations. The worst test of all was the WADA test. So many tests.
All right. Can you point to the ceiling for me? Can you point to the ceiling? It's okay. It's all right.
After all those tests were taken, they finally concluded that I was a prime candidate for a left temporal lobe resection surgery. It meant they were going to have to make an incision on my left temporal lobe, go in and fish out the damaged part of my brain.
He told me how long the surgery would be, when to expect you out.
Yeah, and it took a lot longer than that.
It took longer. White knuckled hanging onto the chair, I was so scared, was when it started going over and over and over. Then when they came and told me I could see you, oh, such a relief when they told me that I could see you.
When the operation was completed, there was no immediate way to know if it was a full success or not, or what the outcome was going to be. I was pretty much just told that I needed to go home and see what happened. I remember going home the first day with staples down the side of my head. I was extremely tired. They had to cut through muscle and everything, so it hurt to eat.
Well, right after your surgery, you were so sore you couldn't do anything. You were hurting for a while. You were very just lethargic, and didn't want to take your pain medicine, but sometimes you just had to. And then when you came out of that, you immediately started trying to prove to yourself you could do this and you could do that.
For the first day, I did not have a seizure, any grand mal or petit mal seizures. And that seemed pretty cool to me. I was thinking, well, maybe this has lightened the load some. And then the second day went by and I still didn't have any seizures. Soon a week went by, and then a second week went by. When the 3-month mark finally came around, I remember my parents asking me if I wanted to go and take a look at a car that was for sale nearby. It was a Honda Del Sol, the car that I had fallen in love with as a teenager and I had always wanted. It was my dream car. For some reason, I just loved that car so much. And there was somebody selling one that just a couple miles away.
Bill told me, said, you know, I found a Honda Del Sol. Do you think Joe wants to go look at it? I said, I guarantee you he wants to go look at it. And you and Bill came home with it.
My parents actually bought that for me. My parents knew that it was going to be a full success and I was going to be able to drive that car. I started going to community college after that to get some basic classes out of the way. And at first it was pretty overwhelming going back to school, knowing that I had done so poorly before. But because I had this drive to really see what I could do, my grades were just doing awesome. I got into this mode where I was wanting to see what I could do, just try new stuff. So just silly things. I decided to get a unicycle. I learned how to juggle and just crazy stuff just to see what I was capable of.
You immediately started trying to prove to yourself you could do this and you could do that and you could turn vegan, and you lost about 55 pounds because you started doing all these self-improvement things.
When we seen you really hitting the books and stuff, it was like, oh.
They didn't offer the bachelor's degree that I wanted at that school, so I decided to look around to a school to transfer to. I decided to put in an application at Ringling College, where I heard all of these cool cartoonists were being hired from back in the 90s. That was where I always wanted to go. And I was in Florida now, so I said, well, I'm gonna give it a shot. I put in the application and I was actually accepted. The biggest deal of that was I was gonna be going to school down in Sarasota, and that is the farthest I've ever been from actual family members. It was pretty nerve-wracking going down there initially, just feeling for the first time in my late 30s being all by myself. The classes at Ringling have been going fantastic. I'm well on my way to getting my degree. The way that things have turned around for me is just so mind-blowing. There are days that it's just like, I am just worried that I'm gonna wake up and it's gonna be like it used to be. It's strange because I used to wish that I could go back and just undo that trip and not ever have to deal with the problem of being a seizure patient. But to know what I know now, to have lived the life that I've lived, I think that I have an appreciation for things in a different way. There's a different perspective that I see things, and I wouldn't see it that way if I had not been through all those different challenges. So looking at it now, if I was able to go back and undo all of that, if I could change it and just live a regular life, I'd have to say no. I think that living through that has made me what I am. And in honesty, I wouldn't change a thing.